All right. We are June 5th, 2026, Sprint Demos. This is Fleet version 4.87.0. The original PR before it meant pull request. It meant Praesiodemium. I got it. Okay, Praesiodemium. Named that because you have to pray before you try to pronounce it. Excited to show some cool stuff today. Gonna hand it off to George in the MDM product group.
Alrighty, kicking us off first for demos will be Magnus from the MDM team.
Thank you, George. Let me just screen share here quickly. Yep, so on the first item here is this one that I'll just put a couple words to. There isn't really much to demo, which is optimize Apple profile reconciler by moving some of the logic into code. And the user story is, as a Fleet IT admin infrastructure engineer, I want to optimize the performance of the Apple profile reconciler flow so I can be confident it does not lead to overloaded DB performance. And the reason is we've been long having this as a tech dev item, and we finally got around to reworking it a bit, and we saw some really great improvements in this and are hoping to ship it to some of the customers that are currently having a slight bit higher DB load on this. So it should be great to go out when it comes for 87. And then next is a video here. Hi. So today I will demo the following story, which is deploy custom software update enforcement declaration and Windows profiles. And the user story reads the following. As an IT admin, I want to deploy my custom software update enforcement declaration or DDM profile, as well as a Windows OS updates profile so that I can customize the enforcement time and other things while Fleet defaults to noon. So for this one, the idea is that we had this managed OS updates panel where you could easily configure OS updates for your devices, but it lacked a bit of configurability for power users. So now we give them the ability to upload these software update either declarations for Apple or the Windows profile so they can configure all the settings to their liking. So for guide updates, we will update this article, which is enforce OS updates, and we'll call out that there's now like Fleet managed OS updates, or you can use custom profiles without clicking on an environment variable. And we document that they are mutually exclusive, so you can't configure both. And we also link to where you can find all the settings that are available. We'll also then give a small example profile for both Apple and Windows down here, as well as the links again to see the full config surface. So in Fleet, and while being on a Fleet here, we can see for OS updates, I don't have macOS, iOS, iPadOS configured, shown via this green dot here, but I do have Windows OS updates configured. So what this means is for OS settings, if I try now and say, oh, I want to upload a Windows OS updates profile while having the managed OS updates configured, it will fail, saying could that profile OS updates are already configured, remove the OS update settings first. But if I go ahead and update or upload, sorry, a OS enforcement profile, we can see that worked just fine. And if I go back to OS updates and I try now and say, oh, I want to configure something for my macOS, let's do 26.3.1 and 2026.01.01. It now says, couldn't update OS updates settings. A custom OS updates declaration profile already exists. Remove the custom profile first. You can also upload multiple OS profiles. So you could do label scoping to say, I want one DDM OS enforcement for my iOS devices, scoped via label. You could do one for Apple if you want different versions or different criteria. But it gives you the flexibility to define the update behavior you want for your devices. That's it. Thanks. Yep, so that one I think is super great, and it gives the full flexibility as mentioned to users that want it to configure the time or other behavior. And then I have another one here. Hi. So today I will demo this story, which is macOS local account, add support for standard end user or skip account user creation. So the user story reads the following. As an IT admin, I want the option for macOS local admin account to be created first. That can force the second account, which is for the end user, to be either a standard permission account or skip the account creation altogether. And for this, there are some benefits that the standard account has less permissions to do system-wide settings, wipe the device itself, and other things. As for skip account creation, is great for devices that don't ever need a end user account, like Zoom rooms and whatnot. So for the guide updates, we are updating the articles with the setup experience, and we're introducing this end user account type section. And we have this short table highlighting some of the differences between the admin permission and the standard permission set for what you can do on the device, as well as what the default account types are. For now, the end user account has always been created as an admin and will be the default going forward, and should change it. And you can, of course, control this account type with Fleet via the GitOps API or via the UI. So let me show you the UI. If you navigate to controls, setup experience, and then users, you now see these two sections. First one here that we're going to focus on is the local account section. And you can see these settings here, which are, I want the end user account to be created as an admin, which is the default and has been. I want the end user account to be created as a standard user, so less permissions, but still get a user account. Or I want to skip the end user account creation altogether, meaning only this hidden admin account will exist on the device. And as you can see, as I click through here, admin, you have the option, but for standard or skip, you always need an admin account on macOS devices, which means we will force you to create a hidden admin account. So for the sake of the purposes here, I will skip so we can more easily see it. I then have my device ready here, ready to enroll. So I'll go through this process. And once we go through here and it gets done, you will see before it prompted to show the account creation screen where you could put in a account username, you could put in a full name, you could also provide the password. That could, of course, also be locked down by the IDP. But now setting it to skip, we will now see that we get pushed straight to the next step in the setup system, and that we won't ever get prompted for the setup an account for the end user. So now that it completed the device enrollment, you can now see we jump straight to the select your time zone. I'll just click here. So while the setup assistant was done, it rebooted the computer, so I had to re-enable the screen sharing. And as you can see, we're now here on this login screen with only the name and the password field and no account switcher. So you don't have that default end user account. The only way to log in from here is if you go to the host, actions, and then show managed account, you'll find the username, which is for all fleet admin. And you'll find the password, which will rotate once in a while, but I will just show it here. And I'll speed this up while I type it in. So now I type this in and I'm ready to log in. And you can see we're now in the device. And if we go to settings and we go to users down here, users and groups, you can see the only account there is the fleet admin as an admin account. There's no end user as a standard. There's no admin end user account. This is the only account. That's it. Thanks. Yeah, and that is what I had to do.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Magnus. And then I will go ahead and demo a quick feature that I added. It is get my device link for host details. So as an IT admin, I want an easy way in the UI to get the device URL for a host so that I can review what the end user sees on their My Device page and verify correctness. So this is something that'll help us with development and QA as well, but also could be very helpful for an IT admin who needs to check in on what the end user sees. So if we come over here to my local host, My Device that I have, you have a new button down here that says My Device. And if you notice, this is in the user card. And when you have no IDP information, when you click My Device, you get routed straight to the My Device page, the current My Device page for this device. If it didn't have an active My Device token at the time, it will create it before it generates this URL for you. And as you can see, the My Device page still says My Device, but we also changed what happens when you have IDP hosts connected. So as you can see, this end user is Mrs. Doubtfire. So when we click My Device here, we have Mrs. Doubtfire's device. Alrighty, and then last but not least, when we go to the dashboard, transparency is key to Fleet. So what you will see is new activities that say this IT admin retrieved the My Device URL for that host. All right, and that's it for me. Next up, we've got Jordan.
Thanks, George. In a moment, I'm going to also share a feature that Andy worked on. Hi, this is Configuration Profiles, Custom Targets with Include Any and Exclude Any. Our user story is as an IT admin that's targeting specific hosts by adding a label to a configuration profile. I want to exclude some hosts within that label so that I can have more control over which hosts get that profile without having to write a long label query. And so I've got a Mac here. It's in a few different labels, this Apple Silicon macOS host dynamic label, VIP hosts, opt-in group A and opt-in group B. And I don't have any profiles uploaded to this team yet, so I'll fix that. And so the new feature that was, the gist of the feature that was added here is that you can now mix include and exclude rules. So you can still only choose include any or include all, but you can combine them with an exclude any rule. So we're going to do include all, opt-in group A and B, but we're going to exclude VIP hosts from this profile. That's this disable device management pane. And then likewise, we're going to another profile which includes, we'll do all Apple Silicon Mac OS hosts, and just to choose a label that will never be true, we'll say Debian based Linux hosts, which will never be true for that Mac, and we'll add that profile. And then this will take just a moment for the background processes to run and deliver that profile to the host. While we're waiting for that, we'll take a look at what these labels look like now on our targeting screen. So you can see it calls out that it includes all of these labels and excludes any of these labels. These were built so that they can include relatively large groups of labels if needed. All right, and this is now verifying. You can see it did not apply the disable device management because that's excluded for hosts in this VIP group. However, it did apply this hide login and background items notification setting. One other change that you'll see coming from this change is on the label screen. And so this opt-in group B label is now referenced by a profile. And previously you could delete it and it would result in what we call a broken label. If you've already got broken labels in Fleet, you'll still have those broken labels. But if I try to go delete this label now, it's going to say that a configuration profile targets this label. Please delete the profile and try again. And so we're matching the behavior that we have with software where you cannot delete a label that's referenced by a profile. As mentioned, we're not going to do anything with your existing broken labels, but this will hopefully try to avoid that trap in the future that was often confusing for admins. Thank you. And yeah, one thing to call out on that, I demoed it on a Mac, but that does apply to Android and Windows as well. So it's all platforms there. And then got a POC demo. I'm going to do a quick update on a POC that we worked on during this sprint, which is automatic provisioning, syncing, and auth to SaaS using any IDP. We actually decided just to focus on these provision and sync features first, but essentially we wanted to build a feature into Fleet that can allow users to auth to their IDP to keep their password on their Mac in sync with their IDP password that can support more IDPs than those that have first-party support for platform SSL. We wanted to test whether we could do this. We've seen some competitors do it. We wanted to get a feel for the technical details. And so I've got a host that is currently going through setup, and you'll see an app here in setup called Fleet PSSO that's going to be installed. And so I'll talk more about that in just a moment. We'll actually see what that app is. Okay, so that app is installed. Setup experience should be finishing pretty quickly. Okay, and we see this single sign-on for Mac screen. So if you've ever seen Platform SSO, you've likely seen this screen before. But you can see it's got a Fleet logo now. It doesn't have an Entra or an Okta logo. So I'm going to hit continue. I'm prompted for my IDP credentials. Continue. And you can see it's actually automatically provisioning my user account here. It doesn't allow me to change the password. It's locked to my IDP password. So I'll hit continue. Now, what happened there in the background was actually that this Fleet PSSO extension, it's a Platform SSO extension, reached out to the Fleet server. It completed a device registration and a user registration with the Fleet server, which validated the password against Okta using a special OAuth ROPG app within Okta. And it set up some longer-lived keys that both this host will use to talk to the Fleet server and that the Fleet server can use to authorize certain actions with this host. And so actually what I'm going to do next in just a moment, once we get to the desktop, is I'm going to log out and I'll change my password in the IDP. And all right, I have changed the password on the IDP. And so I'm going to lock the screen and show you what the password sync process looks like. So you can see it took a moment there to log in. And now it says account updated, password has been synchronized with the IDP. And so what actually happened there was that in the background, so I logged out, or I locked screen. If I had logged in with the existing password, nothing would have happened. But because I put in a different password, the Mac used the password SSO extension to make a request to the Fleet server and auth with the new password. When that authentication was successful, the Mac essentially used the new and existing password to roll everything over to the new password, and now will not let me log in with the old password. If it can't reach the Fleet server or whatever your configured IDP is for Platform SSO, then of course nothing happens there. You're not able to log in with the new passwords, but it's very resilient to server being down or whatever. It will just continue on with the old password. But because I did it that way, everything such as my keychain is still accessible, even though if you know how macOS keychains normally work, if you were to just change the password out from under it, you would log in, but you would not have access to your keychain items. That is not the case here. All right, as mentioned, that is a POC, so it will not be shipping in this version of Fleet, but it's pulled into the next release 4.88, and we will be shipping an initial version of it as part of the 4.88 release. All right, another feature. We've got a quick update on some recent work we did to change our references in the product from Apple Business Manager to the new name of Apple Business. Our user story is, as a Fleet user, I want to see consistent terminology in the API, YAML, and CLI so that I'm not confused when referencing Apple products or documentation. And specifically, we want Apple Business referenced instead of Apple Business Manager. Now, we previously had several APIs that reference either ABM or Apple Business Manager as the full name. And so we've renamed those to reference either AB or Apple Business. And we've done that consistent with our other recent renames. So we'll take a look at this AB tokens endpoint. So this was previously the ABM tokens endpoint. And now if you look at the endpoint, it actually returns two objects similar to existing renames we've done for teams to fleets or queries to reports. When you hit either the old ABM tokens reference for the endpoint or the new AB tokens reference, you'll see first this ABM tokens object. Now this endpoint has actually gone through two phases of renaming. First the team to fleet rename, and then now this newer rename. And you first get this ABM tokens object with the previous team information in it, along with the fleet information as it returned in the previous version after the team to fleets rename. And also this AB tokens object, which is all net new, so it only returns the fleet terminology instead of the older teams terminology. If we go and try to edit the fleets, you'll see that it calls this endpoint that is API latest fleet AB tokens. It hits the fleets endpoint, and that endpoint likewise returns this kind of split model where you get your legacy response object named ABM tokens as well as the new AB token one. And this has likewise been carried out in fleet control as well. So you can see the new fleet control get MDM AB, which returns Apple Business Manager information. And then if I use the legacy get MDM Apple BM, we get a deprecation warning, but the same information. And so we've maintained full backwards compatibility. All previous API requests that were successful on previous versions will still work with the new version. The only case where you would run into an error is if you try to mix, for instance, team iOS team with iOS fleet in the same request, or ABM token with AB token in the same request. Similar to our existing renames, you'll get a sort of duplicate parameter error. And the UI should use all new AB tokens and Apple Business centric API calls now. We've got one more feature that was added as part of a customer issue. I'm going to do a quick demo of a new contributor feature we've added to Fleet, which is the CA certificate rollover process. Our user story is, as an infrastructure engineer supporting silently migrated Fleet deployments, I want to have a process to roll over CA certificates so their validity period matches that of Fleet created CA certificates, so that I can ensure customer CA certificates do not expire. And so the impetus of this is that we have a few customers who have used our silent migration process, which allows customers to use their existing MDM enrollments and certificates to migrate host to Fleet without those hosts really even knowing that there's a proxy involved, and the hosts just began talking to Fleet one day silently in the background. Now, normally Fleet generates a certificate with a 10-year validity, and so all of our deployments in the field have certificates with very long validities. However, since users can bring certificates in this process, what we discovered was that we had a gap, and we had at least one customer who had brought a certificate which was going to expire soon. And so we spent some time digging into what happens during that expiration process and built a tool for use by our infrastructure engineers to extend the validity of customer certificates to match that of our normal Fleet server. And so we've got a contributor doc here that describes the process. We added this to the existing MDM assets tool, and that tool is already used for these sorts of things, specifically for importing the assets during the silent migration, like the signing keys and such. And we're just going to look at my Mac here, and you can see, oh dear, it's got an MDM certificate that expires later today, like a little less than an hour actually. So we are going to run this tool, and I'm just using the default connection strings here. And so it added 1 year to my certificate. We would do a longer addition in the normal process, but we're just going to add a year here for the demo. And so you'll see a few different things happen. So you can see that this Fleet root certificate authority profile is now in verifying, and that's because one of the changes that we have to make is to send out that new CA. And you can see if I refresh and look at MDM commands that that install profile was acknowledged. We'll refetch this system. We'll give it just a moment. And while we're doing that, we'll look at the disk encryption key, because the disk encryption key uses the certificate. And so one of the changes we had to make was that we had to update this code to properly handle both the old and new certificate. Now, the key is used. Essentially, what we do is take that existing self-signed certificate, bump its validity up by however many years, and then self-sign it again. The existing key is continually used, so everything encrypted with that old certificate can still be verified. And if we look at the certificates reported on this host, you would now see our new certificate being reported. And if we look at this host and look at its MDM profiles, we will see that it's enrollment and it's this fleet root CA. It's been updated so that it's now got this newer expiration. Because of how these certificates are treated, this new fleet root CA will essentially be used for all the verification that the previous one would have been used for. Because it has the same authority key identifier and subject key identifier, it will chain up with the old certificate and will continue to allow MDM traffic, which is the main thing that our SCEP certificates are used for. And so you can see I'm just going to run a simple command on this host. I'm going to run a wipe command. And if I wipe this host, we'll see pretty quickly that wipe command was enqueued and acknowledged. And so this host is still speaking over MDM protocol. It's maintained its MDM connection. As we showed, it's still able to fetch, or it's still able to show its file vault encryption keys. And the only side effect of this entire process is that on iPads and iPhones specifically, once that old certificate expires, you will see an expired notice on the enrollment profile until such time as the next SCEP renewal happens. That's entirely cosmetic. It doesn't cause any problems or anything like that. And it's a known issue with other MDM vendors if you rotate this key. But yeah, this should be a very helpful feature for any of our customers who've used the silent migration and might have a key with a different validity than we're used to. Thank you.
All right, and that is all I've got. Pass back to George.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jordan. And that concludes the MDM features for this sprint. Next up is software. I'm going to give a brief overview of a community PR that we got from Ben Edwards. So as a fleet user hosting Fleet using Google Cloud Provider, GCP, I want Fleet to use IAM authentication to store, retrieve my software packages and file carves so that I don't have to use a hard-coded bearer token by setting the Fleet S3 software installer's access key ID and the access key and the file carves equivalent config. And this is the PR that Ben Edwards brought in for the support, and then Carlo just helped shepherd it through the process, clean it up, and get it merged. Next up, we've got Rachel with the other features that the software team worked on this sprint.
Cool. Hey, everybody. So this first one, I guess I'll just play the video and I'll speak for itself. Here we go. Hey everybody, it's Rachel here. I will be showing you Fleet Spotlight, which is a new feature in the UI that will be rolling out in 4.87. For the user story, it says, as a Fleet user, I want to quickly navigate to any page, action, or setting using the keyboard shortcut so that I can move through Fleet faster without clicking through menus. And this originally started as a hackathon project in person with me and our designer, Marco. The idea was actually his, and I got to run with it. So let me go ahead and show you what that looks like. So here we are on the Fleet UI. And first, I want to show you what it would be like to go through a user flow without the command palette. So for example, what if I wanted to add a custom package to be available for my workstation's fleet? I would need to choose my workstation's fleet from this dropdown. A custom package is a software that I am adding to the workstation's library available for hosts that are on the workstation's fleet. I can go here and go to add software. Here are my 3 different software types I can add. I'm going to go and add a custom package. So you can see that it took a few interactions to get to this page, and I had to know where it lived in the first place. Now let me go back to the dashboard and show you how fast this could be. So I'm going to go to switch to the workstation's fleets and add a custom package. And that's it. We're back to the same page. Every destination in Fleet is now one search away, and the search knows what you mean, not just what you typed. So from any page now, you can now hit Command K, which will open up the search for a page or command. If you want to, you can change your fleet by hitting Command Shift F from either inside the command palette or from the page itself. And from there, you have a search box in which I tried custom package, which shows me some actions as well as some pages. So now let me spend a minute talking about what's happening when you search, because the search is doing more than what it looks like it's doing. For example, let's go ahead and type in add app. Notice that I'm typing 2 words and it's matching them anywhere in the label or in the keywords that we have in the entries. For this main search, I don't have to type the whole word. I can type in something like report auto, and you can see that it matches with manage report automations. Each token is matched to a prefix independently, so I can think loosely and still land on the right thing. And then finally, let me show you what it looks like to type live. So when I type live, you can see that our matches are actually ranked. The exact hits will beat out prefixes, will beat out substrings, and substrings will beat out keyword matches. So looking here, run live policy and run live report is a better match than advanced options, reports, or organization settings. The ranking is doing the real work for you, even for one-word search. So this palette doesn't make you hunt. It doesn't make you remember. You just think about the thing, you type the thing, and then you're there. It's the feature that's going to be saving your sanity when you're already exhausted. This main search is only one part of this command palette. There is a lot of different pickers. So if you want to type in something like view host, you can see we have view host, view policy, view report, view software inventory, and view software library. And all of these pickers here actually call a backend API. And so this search host is the exact same search that you will find on the manage host page. I tried to make the user experience as delightful as possible by putting online and offline icons on here as well. So let me go ahead and type in my test laptop. You can see it is online and it is in the workstations. And this will immediately bring you to the host page. And again, this is the same pattern for viewing a policy, report, software inventory, and software library. You can go ahead and click on those entities and you can see them pop up in real time using the backend API here. I never actually have to leave the keyboard and look at another screen. And finally, two more things I do want to call out is when you hit Command K, and you can see the breadth of all of the things that are available. This is looking at a global admins view on Fleet Premium, so you can see that we have all of these different pages. But down below, we also have a bunch of commands, and I wanted to call out that these commands and these pages will match the UI exactly based on user permissions and role-based access. So you can rest assured that Fleet Free or other roles like maintainers and observers are not showing pages or actions that they won't be able to get to. One last thing just for fun. You can see that we can also switch to dark mode. We can also sign out very quickly from the command palette. And so these are now all just one quick search away. So once again, building this was super delightful and satisfying to build and even more satisfying to use. And now every Fleet screen is just a few keystrokes away. I think that's it for our team.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. And that'll be it for software. Back to you, Luke.
Thank you. Awesome stuff. I wish I could read all of the chat as you guys are going through that, but a lot of great reactions to all those cool features and cool to see the hackathon stuff landing. I'm going to hand it over to Sharon now and security and compliance.
Yeah, nice work, MDM and software, nice features. And we'll start with S&C. Dante will show a nice feature to filter top-level applications. Take it, Dante.
All right, thank you. So this feature, macOS filter for host details software tab, not only shows top-level applications. As an IT admin landing on the host details page for macOS hosts, I want to only see top-level applications so I can see the apps that are installed without the clutter, like helper applications, command line tools, system apps, etc. So I think we're all pretty familiar with this view. You look at a macOS host, you want to see if they have something like Word or Slack installed, and you instead see about 1 million helper applications and built-in applications. You could scroll through it for years. There's 550 applications. This is a brand new host that only has about 3 things installed. It's a lot to deal with. Now, you can only filter by applications and only see the ones that users have installed or that are applications provided by Fleet. This is now the default view when you check out a macOS host. The other one is, of course, still available under full inventory. But most of the time, this is what people are actually interested in. And this should save a lot of time filtering through things that you don't actually care about. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dante. And with that, moving to orchestration with Nico and Lucas presenting and a feature for easier to manage policy automations. Is it Nico or Lucas?
Yeah, I will start with the UI changes and then Lucas will show the new setting on the backend. I have a video. Hello, I'm going to demo easier to manage policy automations with continuous retry option for software and scripts. So this is separated into 2 stories. The first one is related to a couple front-end changes, and the second part is for a new backend setting. So the first story reads as an IT admin, I want to manage all automations for a given policy at once, so that I can manage my policy automations without losing context. And the second story is, as an IT admin, I want to configure a policy to trigger a software or script automation, even when the policy goes from fail to fail, so that I can continuously enforce a software install or script run. So first I will show all the UI changes, and then Lucas is going to focus on the backend part for the new setting. So to start, I have the output here, just to have context on what we have now, and then show the new changes. So I'm on this fleet on testing and QA, and in order to configure a policy automation, we have to go to the policies page, and then once a policy is created, we have this manage automations dropdown. From here, we can select which type of automation to configure. So for example, for this policy, Linux Fleet Desktop extensions enabled, we already have a script automation configured. So if we wanted to edit this, we would have to click here, click on scripts, and then find the policy here, is this one, and then select which script to run. So imagine if we had more policies, those would show here, we would have to find the correct one, then select which script to run. The same applies for the other types of automations. So this is what we have. Then in the details page, we have this read-only automations section. There is no action we can perform here, as far as I know. And then when editing the policy, this is also read-only. We don't have any action we can do here. Okay, so back to the policies page. Having said that, I will switch to this other tab I have here. I have all the changes already running. So first change is this button. We no longer have a dropdown. And then within the automation cell, this cell is now clickable. So anywhere you click on it, it will also open a modal. So that's the main change. Let's start with this one. When you click here, you will see this. Basically, this modal is for enabling or disabling things for this particular fleet. So we have webhooks or tickets, we have calendar events, and conditional access. We don't show script or software here because that's driven by having either software or scripts in the library. We don't have to enable or disable anything. So in this case, here we can toggle enable or disable. This is existing components that we have. This is nothing new. And in this case, I will leave webhooks or tickets and calendar events enabled, and conditional access is disabled. I don't even have it configured, so it's disabled. So that's one part. The second part is, as I said, clicking on this cell. This will pop up this other modal where we can actually configure which automations to run for whenever this policy fails. So this is all new. As you notice, conditional access is disabled, so we show this disabled state. Also, each of the rows here have a tooltip informing what each of those mean. This one currently has the software to be installed. I can also select run script. I have no scripts, so if I try to save, you will see this validation error. And then the new setting that we introduced is this continuous software and script automations. So this has a tooltip explaining what it does as well. I will check that, save. So you see it persists. And then in this case, we have two automations. So we show a tooltip with kind of a summary of what's configured. But in this other case, we have a single software automation configured. So we show the icon and then the display name, as you can see here. So yeah, that's all of the changes on the list policies page. Actually, for all fleets, we only show webhooks or tickets. And then for unassigned, we don't show calendar events since that's an existing restriction. So we keep that. And yeah, one last thing is that even though if you are within a fleet, you can still see like the inherited policies and you can toggle the model to configure them. It will get the right context. So for global policies, as I said, we only have webhooks or tickets. I don't have them enabled, but you can see that we only show that. Coming back for the detail page, this hasn't changed much, but we show this new help text, which depends on what's the value on the continuous setting that we added. So in this case, this policy has the continuous retry option enabled. So we say that the automations will run every time there is a failing response. But if I change that, sorry, here, to be disabled and come back, that we change the help text, saying that these automations will only run when the response goes from pass to fail or on the first failure. Okay, so that's the detail page. Going to the edit policy page, this is new. Basically, it's the same component we saw in the modal a couple of moments ago, the same behavior. And one last thing is that when creating a policy and saving, we have this new auto automations button. So you can click it and optionally configure any automation you want. Again, this is the same component we already saw before. And going back to this page, one minor thing is that in this case, this software has a custom icon, so that's shown. But if I delete it and keep the default icon, we see the default icon there. So yeah, that's all of it. Hope you guys like it. Thank you.
Okay, Lucas, want to share?
Yep. I'll demo this part quickly. As Nico said, this was 2 stories, so Nico demo this one. I want to quickly demo this one. So as an IT admin, I want to configure a policy to trigger a software or script automation even when the policy goes from fail to fail, so that I can continuously force a software install or script run. So I have a policy here on a team real quick. So I have a policy configured with continuous automation set. You can see here that it says that it's going to run every time. I have one with this one with a script, this one with an app, which will also be continuous, and another one which is the default. Coming back to that button there, if basically this new setting is unset by default, it's not checked because the behavior is going to be the same. By default, policy will only run the automations if they go from pass to fail, but not if they go from fail to fail, right? Because that's the default. Now, if you set this, the automations, when the policy fails, they're going to run every hour, right? If the policy fails. So that's the big change. So let's go back here. I have a host which should run the 3 policies. They're currently failing. Before the meeting, I made it fail. I think I have a watermark activity here. So I show you the previous run before the demo. So before the demo, I ran this automation, the install echo app, and it's basically running every 1 hour. You can see here, it even runs for every failure. It will run actually 2 more times because we have a default that every script and software run 3 times per hour. So you're going to see a lot of this. If you turn this on, every hour it will run the script, it will run the echo app 3 times each. The same for VPP apps, which I did not include on this demo. But basically that's the feature. It's kind of basically continuous automation for hosts. That's all.
Thank you, Nico and Lucas. A nice thing. And Lucas, you have another thing?
Oh, yeah, the technician role. Yeah, I can. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Just to mention that, I don't need to demo that one. Give me a second. I want to get the technician role. Is we added a new. You can now transfer. If you're a technician, you can now transfer as a user with a role technician. I want to be able to transfer hosts between fleets so that I can assign, so that I can assist in my specific role. So again, this transfer role was only available for admins and I believe maintainers, so now it's available for technicians. The only caveat is that if you're a fleet technician, that's not available in the UI. You can transfer hosts from fleet to fleet if you're a fleet technician using the API, but not the UI. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Lucas and Nico. And one small thing from me, I'll try to make it as fast as possible to leave time. A problem that actually that's an industry-wide problem when you have a server and you have a lot of agents, hundreds of thousands in some cases. Those agents need to be smart to know when the server is suffering, and if they get errors, not behave as like trying to beat a dead horse, trying to wake it, but rather back off. And this is something we see again and had a lot of postmortems, and we are starting addressing it now. Let me read the major story, which is part of a bigger one. You know what? I'll read the bigger story. As an IT admin running a fleet at scale, I want fleet agent components, fleet desktop, Orbit, Osquery to intelligently back off when receiving error responses from the server so that transient failures, whatever it is, don't cascade into traffic storms that overwhelm the database. Specifically, what we did this sprint is a part of it. I want Fleet Desktop specifically to do exponential backoff, and I'll show it. And this will be part one of several steps. So just to quickly go over it, what we do is when a Fleet component that communicates gets an error, it doesn't try to do it again and again, which ends up in a thundering herd of like a storm of communications that kills the server, and we've seen it many times. And what we started to introduce is an exponential backoff. So if the regular frequency is 1 per 5 seconds, it'll be 10, then 20, all the way limited to 5 minutes. So if you have a 10,000 host, for example, that you have 2,000 requests per second, which is high on the DB, this will turn into 33 requests once backed off. And just going over the plan, we start with the desktop. This is risky. This is not something that comes without risk, but it's managed, and it's something that we reviewed and tested thoroughly. We will start with the Fleet Desktop backoff, and then sprints after it, maybe one or more of the following. So for the next agent, we'll have that. Next agent 1.57.0. And with that, Luke, back to you, and thank you.
Awesome. Great stuff. Good problem to have. Hard cramming all the good features into the allotted time. We'll go a little bit late if we need. I don't want to cut anyone's feature demos short, so I'm going to hand it over to Scott and first impressions.
All right. Thank you, Luke. A little bit of a shorter sprint for us because both myself and Noah were out for a little bit. So mine will go a little bit faster, but we still managed to get in some good features and a lot of bug fixes. These first two I can demo together, and these actually started from a PR from Josh Roscoe that we just kind of shepherded through. So thank you, Josh. So I will look at the two stories here. Number one, host page hide issues, OS query, private IP address, public IP address columns for new Fleet instances. As a new Fleet user on the host page, I don't want to see those columns I just mentioned by default so that I see less non-supported. And the other one that we merged at the same time was update OS query column to agent to match host details page. So if you look at our host page, especially for personal mobile devices, you'll see a lot of not supported on here because a lot of those columns I just mentioned are not things that are relevant for mobile. And as things come in, they might not have this data yet. So what we have done is actually just remove those from the initial set. You can always get them back by going to edit columns and adding those columns back. But for now, they're not there by default. Makes the whole thing look a lot cleaner. The other thing that we did was update this agent column. So before we just showed OS query version, but not every host even has OS query. And if you're using Orbit, we'd still like to see the Orbit version and the OS query version and the desktop version as we do on the details page. So I can demo what that looks like by going to this subset of hosts that definitely have Orbit on them. And you'll see now it shows the Orbit version. And if you hover over it, it gives you both the Orbit, OS query, and Fleet Desktop, which is identical to what you get on the host details page under agent. Kind of just looking at this today, I realized I think a good fast follow for this would be to probably do something similar to what we have for, say, when they have Chrome on here, which is have a little bit of a prefix so you can tell whether you're looking at OS query or Orbit. So that probably could be a good improvement that we can do next. The next story we have was GitOps driver on output, easy to understand message for each custom package Fleet is going to delete. This came out of some customer feedback that they wanted to get a little bit more of a heads up when they were going to be deleting a custom package via rather than just it being gone and kind of hard to replace. So what we've done, which is sounds deceptively simple, but was a little bit tricky into GitOps, is just make it so that when you do run GitOps and you have removed some custom packages or Fleet maintained apps from there, I'll demonstrate this in dry run, it will tell you what software you would have deleted. Trickier than it sounds because GitOps can't always tell when you're trying to delete something just because it could be that you changed a URL for a package, in which case it looks to GitOps like a different package and it needs to do some stuff on the server to be able to determine that it was actually an update rather than delete. But this is there now and people can now use this in their CI to determine whether they want to go forward and merge in something that would delete software. So that should be helpful for those cases. And the last story we have on here, just trying to move right along. GitOps create a new fleet and assign Apple Business Volume Purchasing Program in 1PR. This actually ended up being more of a bug fix because Carlo, I think in the last release, fixed the majority of this. The issue was that something that we see fairly often in GitOps stuff, and we knock it down whenever we can, is that there are certain things that you need to run GitOps twice for, especially if it involves a new fleet. You want to, for example, in this case, if you wanted to add a new fleet and also add it to VPP or also add it as a default Apple Business fleet, then it wouldn't work. It would say fleet not found the first time you added them, and then it would work again the next time that you ran GitOps when the fleet had already been created. I'm not going to demo this. It's a weird thing to demo, but rest assured, if you now in one GitOps run, add a new fleet and add it to Apple Business or VPP, that can now work in one run instead of crashing out and giving you an error the first time you run it. And I think that is the main stories that we worked on in first impressions. So back to you, Luke.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. And still a good amount of time. We have 20 minutes. And last but not least, power to the PC. I'm going to hand it off to Victor.
All right. Thank you, Luke. And the main feature we shipped this release is adding these commands, lock, wipe, and clear passcode to Android. And I'm going to go ahead and play this video, a short 2-minute video for a major feature, because we have a lot to demo. Let's go.
In this feature, we're adding Android commands. As an IT admin looking at an Android host on the host details page, I want to see buttons for lock, wipe, and clear passcode so that I can run these commands. Let's take a look at our fleet. We have 2 devices. So for the corporate-owned device, we now have lock, wipe, and clear passcode. We changed unenroll to wipe because effectively the same thing. When you unenroll a corporately owned device, it will wipe it. Let's take a look at our BYOD device. BYOD device still has unenroll, even though it is running the wipe command under the hood, but that only wipes the work profile. Then we added lock and clear passcode. So let's talk about lock. If the device is using a unified lock, then sending this lock command will log the device. We see lock pending here. The actions are like that, and eventually this lock pending will go away. We do not have a locked status because we cannot track it. We do not know when the user unlocks the device. Now let's take a look at clearing the passcode. I will go ahead and reconfigure the device. Okay, so now I set the passcode. So when I try to open a corporate app, it asks for a passcode. You cannot see it here. This also means when running the lock action, it will lock only the corporate apps if they've already been unlocked. But let's go ahead and try clearing the passcode. So we clear the passcode. Modal here, clear the passcode. Clear passcode pending. This is a new badge over here. And now when we try to open the app, we no longer require a passcode. And then if we reload the page, so we do have activities for all of these, clear passcode, locking, wiping, etc. That's it for this feature.
All right, that was that. There's also a bonus video if you want to watch it, you can, where I wipe and unenroll devices using Fleet Free. But it's the same similar flow here, and we modified a few docs, a link over here. So next I want to talk about Microsoft Entra. So we discovered that Microsoft Entra added a new requirement that's going to go in effect July 1st. So we had to squeeze this feature in so it can be shipped before July 1st. So let's go to watch the video.
In this story, we're adding support for Microsoft Entra v2 access tokens. As an IT admin enrolling Windows devices into Fleet via Microsoft Entra, I want Fleet to validate v2 access tokens in addition to v1 tokens so that on-premises MDM applications created after July 1st, 2026 can successfully enroll devices into Fleet. So this has been motivated by this announcement. If you go to Azure and try to create an MDM application, you'll be met with this, that MDM applications will issue V2 access tokens. It is not clear whether you can change them back to V1 tokens, but basically the legacy applications will still work. It's only that any new applications will by default to V2 access tokens. So what do V2 access tokens mean? They mean that we need the application client ID. Now the change is, if you go to integration MDM and you're configuring Microsoft Entra, in addition to the tenant IDs, we now are able to add client IDs pretty much the same way that we could add tenant IDs. So we can add one. There's links here to where to find it. So I'll go ahead and copy mine over here. And then I can add it. And if I try to add the same one, won't let me. If I try to do something else, it'll say invalid format, but we can add multiple client IDs here. And then once you're on your host, on your Windows, and enrolling with Entra username and password, you'll be able to get through. And we have also added matching activities, just like we have for the Entra tenants. So if I delete one here and then go to global activities, we'll see that deleted client ID, added. That's it.
All right, moving on to the next one. So don't really have much to demo here, but let's go ahead and read the story. So as a fleet admin managing Windows hosts, if I have MDM commands to reach enrolled Windows, I want to reach them quickly without device polling fleet every minute so that command latency stays low while we stop the aggressive 1 minute polling that drives audit log and database load. So currently the way we do Windows is we have the Windows host itself poll fleet every single minute. And that causes side effects that some customers have seen, such as some CSPs reevaluating every 1 minute and creating a lot of logs. We also want to reduce our database load, so we are switching to using our agent, our fleet D that's already running, to start the MDM sessions. So we're now going to be telling our agent when we have commands to send down to a Windows device, we're going to be telling our fleet D agent, and our fleet D agent is going to initiate those commands, that interaction with our server. So it is not immediately customer visible. We do expect about 15-second reduction with how fast profiles reach Windows devices. And I do have a link here to the architecture documentation regarding how this whole process is working in case you want to dive into the details. And lastly, let's talk about OTEL. Let's take a look at this story. Oh, it's not a story, it's a reliability issues. Okay, so we have had OTEL running in Dogfood for a while, but we also wanted to enable it for customer production environments. However, the issue was cost. So now in this feature, we have created several tiers of endpoints. And let me open up one of the docs. I think it's reference architecture. Let me make it look nice. And that's a big doc. And that's, okay, here we go. So we have added documentation to our reference architecture. So enabling OTEL has not been publicly documented before. So this is the first time we're actually publicly documenting how we enable our OTEL integration. And here we mentioned that we have basically 4 tiers, certain endpoints we never sample, certain endpoints like the ones coming from Osquery or Orbit, we sample at a very low rate. And this is to reduce the cost for retaining all this data. And then we have some endpoints that we sample at a standard rate, and then some endpoints we always sample. And these numbers could be adjusted. We have also added API endpoints to adjust those under debug. So you can get what they're set to right now, and then you can change these dynamically. So if you are going into a debug session and you want a full sampling, you can just force full for everything, or adjust these as you would like. So this is great news. So hopefully this will improve our customer support and ability to debug customer issues. That's it for me. Back to you, Luke.
Great. Thank you, Victor. All really exciting stuff on the Windows front and some cool telemetry updates. We actually have a little bit of time left, which is good because we have one community contribution that we really wanted to spotlight. So I'm going to hand it over to George for that.
All righty. We have a new person who's been pretty active in our GitHub repo recently. List MDM commands unscope still queries nano view queue view baked in order by. So if we take a look at the issue here, effectively, we could give a TLDR is that this creates a little bit of a performance issue at scale. And so they jumped right in and worked on addressing the issues. So thank you very much for Regendra for jumping on this ticket.
Yeah, let's click on his profile. Just props where props are due.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, Regendra. Cool. A few more minutes. We can always wrap a little bit early, but does anyone have anything they're dying to show off that you didn't have a chance to?
Jonathan, I think you had something for the GitOps for categories.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I think we might, I'm saying we might want to do some design changes for that. So maybe I'll hold off on demoing that until it's
okay.
Until we confirm.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Good call. All right. Thank you, everyone. This is in the chat. Some people are saying their favorite fleet release of all time. We have been on a really productive cadence and delivered a lot of great features. So excited as always to get this out. We will be cutting the release candidate on Monday at noon, and it will be on dog food that afternoon. So everyone have a great weekend. Thanks for a great release, and we'll see you soon.